Adams Archive.
Hello, you beautiful people, and welcome to the Adams Archive. My name is Austin Adams, and thank you so much for listening today. On today's episode, we're going to be catching up to speed on a few different things that have come up over the past couple of weeks, and one of those being that the Secret Service is now doing an investigation after an agent reportedly abandoned their post to breastfeed during a North Carolina Trump event. Kind of weird timing, especially given the fact that the same Secret Service had some, questionable decision-making, as some might call it, recently with specifically Donald Trump. So we'll talk about that. After that, we'll jump into the reflections on a plane during Kamala Harris's offboarding during an event, in which case there was hundreds, maybe some would say even thousands of people that were in the crowd. But were they? So we'll talk about that. ESPN also fired Sam Ponder, who spoke up about the trans inclusion in women's sports, and analyst Robert Griffin III. So we'll talk about maybe why that might be. Then moving on, we'll talk about the recent plane crash in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where there's allegedly some shenanigans. And by that meaning several doctors that were killed in this plane crash that had vowed to release evidence linking to the mRNA gene therapy. All right. Following that, we'll talk about the authorities seeking the public's health and identifying suspects in a potential serial killer. I thought that only happened on Netflix. And last but not least, we will discuss the new potential health emergency that has been declared by the WHO. Who? The WHO. The same WHO. Not the band. The band's pretty good. But the same WHO that had declared an emergency about COVID. Should you be concerned? We'll talk about it. All right, all of that and more. Make sure you stick around. But first, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave a 5-star review. And that's most of what I got for you. I would like to say, first of all, if you are watching on YouTube, you'll notice the reason for the break, the last week and a half, 2 weeks of going without an episode, is that I completely redid my studio. I thought it was a little bit of an update from the grassy background that was behind me. Seemed a little bit outdated, 2001 back when we started the podcast. So I thought it was time to do an update, and it took a little bit more time than I expected, but I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you like it. So make sure you head over to YouTube, subscribe there, and last but not least, I don't know if you know this. You probably do, but I have launched Ronin. Ronin is my Faraday goods company. You can check it out right now by going to roninbasics.com. And you will see all sorts of Faraday goods. And if you don't know what Faraday goods are, they're basically a fabric-based material that allows us to block all inbound and outbound signals, including that which would help you to mitigate the effects and harmful effects of EMF radiation, as well as utilizing it in phone cases here, which you can slip your phone in and completely eliminate your digital footprint, stop all inbound and outbound signals from your phone, develop your own digital hygiene routine in a world that is surrounded by digital threats. So head over roninbasics.com. We'll talk a little bit about that because I've done a ton of research, even more recently, come across some crazy things that I've talked about. So go check it out, roninbasics.com. We even have an EMF quiz that you can check out where it will create a customized analysis of your own risk exposure. So if you want that, head over to Instagram. I'll send it there. We'll also be setting it up on the website here very shortly. roninbasics.com. Go check it out. You can get a Faraday hat, which is exactly the baseball hat that's on my head that is lined with silver-lined fabric, beanies, RFID blocking wallets, and in the coming weeks, we will have very similar. This is one of the samples that I had made with the manufacturers that I'm working alongside of, but I made them even better than that one right there, so I'm not going to launch it just yet. So roninbasics.com, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and without further ado, Mr. Dr. Seuss, let's jump into it.
The Adams Archive.
All right. So, very recently, you might have heard the term Secret Service a little bit more often than you're used to. One of those situations being maybe the attempted assassination on the president and all of the technical strategic breakdowns that happened by the Secret Service, but now they're in the headlines again. The Secret Service is now in the headlines again because they are investigating an agent who reportedly abandoned their post at nothing more than a Trump rally just 1 month following the attempted assassination. Seems like a questionable decision-making happening in the Secret Service. So let's go ahead and take a look. This article comes from the Post Millennial, and it says that the Secret Service is investigating after a female agent reportedly abandoned her post to breastfeed her baby during Donald Trump's campaign rally in North Carolina on Wednesday. Several sources familiar with the matter that has to be my favorite statement by these news articles is several sources familiar with the matter. Who are these people? How are they any more familiar than you or I? And what gives them the right to be the person that you cite? And when you're citing something, aren't you supposed to say who they are? Like, several sources familiar with the matter. That literally tells me nothing. You could pull that from thin air. They could completely not exist. Anyways, several sources familiar with the matter told Real Clear Politics reporter Suzanne Crabtree. Okay. Sources told Crabtree that the agent did not provide notice about the situation. This comes after the Secret Service came under fire for its security failures during Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, which resulted in an assassination attempt on the now GOP nominee. Interesting. Now, it says that in the lead up to the North Carolina rally, the USS site agent who is responsible for the security of the event, so this is not just any old agent, this is the person responsible for the security. Like, okay, maybe you should pay attention, was preparing for the arrival of Trump's motorcade. The site agent conducted a final sweep of the walking route and discovered the agent breastfeeding her child in a room that is designated for essential Secret Service official work, such as a potential emergency. Okay, so I was wrong. I guess I should wait a minute before I make statements. Wasn't the individual, was the person doing the final sweep, but they were walking down wherever they were walking, found this woman breastfeeding her child, and decided that maybe we shouldn't be doing that at a time where, I don't know, we're just minutes away from Donald Trump going out and potentially having a similar situation as to what happened last time. It says that it is prohibited for a working agent on duty for a protective assignment to bring a child with them. Makes sense. She also reportedly brought 2 additional family members who were present in the room with her when she was found breastfeeding her baby. The female agent works for the Atlanta field office, as reported by Crabtree. The agent and her family members were reportedly escorted into the room by event staff who had not received security clearance after bypassing the uniform division checkpoint. Okay, that seems to be the gist of it. Won't bore you with the rest of it, but here's what I would think about that. Maybe now's not the time to be bringing in your family members. And maybe you're not in the exact workplace environment where you should be doing that. Now, I am a big proponent of both breasts and feeding. Particularly breastfeeding. I think it's one of the most amazing things in the world. It's incredible that a woman's body has the capabilities to provide life to a child. I have 3 children myself, all of which were breastfed by my beautiful wife. And I would not want to do anything to prevent a woman from being able to breastfeed your child. That is how they live. You shouldn't have to provide your child with bullshit formula because they're riddled with the most carcinogenic materials you could ever imagine. There's some ways to get around that, though. You can breast pump. You could use a breast pump, and you can create an excess, which you put into the freezer and then give your child with a warmer. There's a lot of ways that this could have not happened, and I honestly don't think this would have ever made headlines had it not been just weeks after Donald Trump had an assassination attempt, especially on the sensitive topic of female Secret Service officers, after the absolute clown show that happened on camera that everybody was talking about just a couple of, few weeks ago. I'm sure you recall everything that happened there, so we won't have to go through that. But maybe not the time, maybe not the place, maybe not the position that you should be holding if you're somebody who needs to immediately breastfeed your child. Now, there obviously, I think in almost any situation, any workplace, any environment, you should be able to provide life to your child. I'm not somebody who's saying that, oh, that woman should be in the kitchen or that woman should be at home with her child at all times. No, I get it. Maybe you have to pay rent. Maybe the father's not involved. Maybe he doesn't make enough money in order to enable you to work from home. I get it, 100%. I agree with you. Breastfeed your child. But maybe don't breastfeed that child at the event by having your family bypass security and also during a time where you're supposed to be in an active position of your duties. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to shame this woman. And I saw several people actually shaming this woman online, saying that maybe you don't belong and all that. Like, no, you should be able to hold a position and breastfeed your child. But you should also have the cognitive awareness to make sure that you're not putting a life in danger, which is the entire purpose of your position, is to provide safety to a specific individual, in this case, Donald Trump. Maybe not the time, maybe not the place. That's all I'm saying. I think there's probably a good way that this could have not happened. One being that maybe just get a breast pump. Deal with it like that. Your child deserves your beautiful, wonderful miracle of breast milk. But maybe you shouldn't be doing that behind a gated area during a time where you're supposed to be protecting the president while also hosting people who should not be there at that time. One of those people, including your child, right? Maybe not the time, maybe not the place, maybe not the timeline that you should be doing this immediately after and following the most recent situation with Donald Trump. That's all I'm going to say about that. I don't think there's too much to talk about there, but maybe you should have a little bit better decision making. Should this be huge headlines? Should so many people be talking about it? Probably not. Maybe if something happened to Trump, right? God forbid. But I just think maybe there's some better decision making that could have happened here. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to condemn this woman. I get it. You should be feeding your child. I'm not going to say you should be at home with your baby all the time because I don't know your situation. But what I am saying is that better critical thinking probably could prevented you from finding yourself in this situation. Just 2 weeks after, Cheeto resigned as a result of her incompetence, maybe isn't the time, right? You go through these ebbs and flows with work. Sometimes your feet are to the fire and you need to make sure you hit deadlines. Sometimes your feet are to the fire and you need to make sure that publicly you don't look atrocious in a specific uniform that is designed to show that you are the person who's supposed to be protecting the president of the United States. That's all that I am saying. Right? Seems pretty straightforward. I don't know. I don't think there's too much to dive into besides that. But that's my statement on it. It was one of the biggest articles out there right now. So just wanted to touch on it. Now, next up, we're going to talk about Kamala Harris's campaign and specifically the use of AI. Now, Kamala Harris was exiting her plane and this huge, massive, unbelievably, ridiculously oversized airplane. Nonetheless, she was exiting this plane and people started to look at the picture because there was hundreds, maybe thousands of people in this audience, especially in a time where they're trying to build up the hype around Kamala Harris and make it look like she's, everybody loves Kamala, right? She deserves her own show. It shouldn't be everybody hates Chris. It should be everybody loves Kamala. That's what they're trying to make you seem. That's what they're trying to make it seem like right now. But people thought there was something fishy about this picture, right? A few things. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this picture together, and we will discuss it. Here we go. Here's the picture. You'll see Kamala coming out of her plane. Normal. Makes sense, right? She's just getting out of there. You'll see these thousands, hundreds, thousands of people in the audience that are holding their phones up, getting so excited for her being there. But there's something fishy about that. Reflections. Reflections exist. And when you look at the reflections on this airplane, specifically, some people are pointing to like the left side here. That's not my concern. Where you can really see it is on the right over here on the right. right on the jet. And what you see when you look at the reflection is an empty airport. Empty. Where did those thousands of people go? Where did they go? What happened to them? Well, some people are speculating that maybe, just maybe, those people weren't actually there? That would be really interesting, wouldn't it? Now, another thing that people were pointing to about this picture, this very obviously AI edited photo, trying to make it seem that there's this hype that isn't there, and there's other situations that they're doing this with right now that aren't just this one situation, but what other people are pointing to are the cell phones. The cell phones of the people that are holding up their phones here, where there's nothing on the screen. They're just black, right? If you hold up your cell phone, you should be seeing the scene in front of you, but there's nothing on the screens of these people who are shooting video in a very, very, very daytime setting where you would be able to see the reflections of what's happening, or at least the video footage from their phones. And it doesn't seem to be the case. You can't see anything. It's just all black, almost as if it was generated with AI. And I think this is just the start of it, right? I think this is the very, very beginning of what is going to be an absolute Orwellian future in politics, where you cannot decipher what is real from what is fake. We don't even know if the votes were counted correctly. But now we can't even tell if the campaign photos that are being posted on Twitter are real, if the hype around this person is real. Kamala essentially bought followers. Right? You see all those fake Instagram accounts where they buy followers? Kamala did this in real life, IRL, in real life. She bought these people and had them displayed at the very bottom of this image to make it appear as if people care about her campaign. Now, why would she have to do that? Why wouldn't there be a massive crowd there? Well, maybe because she's not very popular. Maybe because the Democrats nominee wasn't chosen by the people. Right? Maybe it's because she dropped out in like Iowa last time she was a potential candidate for the presidency. Maybe it's because she got less than 1% of the popularity vote leading up to the primary just 4 years ago. Maybe it's because another certain Hawaiian senator demolished her about her past history and followers and the things that she's did while she was a DA. Just maybe. Maybe that's what it's about, right? Maybe they're trying to seem more popular. Nobody talked about Kamala. Kamala didn't even show her face for 4 years. This lady was hidden in the basement somewhere. If she was this popular, if Kamala Harris was this popular the entire time that she was a vice president, they would have been carting her around. She would have been carrying Biden over her shoulder, wheeling him around in a wheelchair, waving to the mass public, openly displaying her love for all of her followers. But she wasn't doing that, and they weren't leveraging her that way. You want to know why? Because she's not popular. Nobody likes her policies. She's very unlikable. She can't speak for 3 minutes in front of a camera without becoming a meme. So when you look at this picture and you go, oh my gosh, she's so popular. No, she's not. And this is the lengths that they're willing to go to gaslight you. If we know nothing about the government, they are master gaslighters, and they're also terrible with Photoshop. And if they AI edited this photo, just a week ago, they were being accused of AI generating Joe Biden's voice on a phone call. And what's to say that they didn't do that then too? And this should be a complete validation of that, if nothing else. And they're just rubbing it in your face. They think you're that stupid. They think you're that stupid to where they can just overlay some people in the audience, edit a few of these, the signs that they're holding up on Canva, forget to edit the because it actually wouldn't have been too terribly difficult to actually edit in the people into the reflection. They are literally just that dumb. They're just that dumb. Let's see what some people had to say about this. It says, guy in the second photo Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crazy. As you start to look at some of these pictures, let's go ahead and I'll share this one with you. Somebody in this photo is holding a Nintendo DS to take a picture of Kamala Harris? No way. They also have these really weird wrists. That's not how you hold a phone, is it? Weird. Very weird. Let's see what else people have to say. The next person says, oh, you mean Mr. Three Hands? Yeah. What? I'm going to share this photo with you guys one more time here. Not only is this person a part of Kamala Harris's hype committee in front of her fake airplane photo, holding a Nintendo DS, it looks like, in this photo, they also have 3 hands that they're using to hold this phone. Weird. Very weird. That person needed that much help to hold that phone. That's pretty hilarious. Okay. When in the fucking world are there that many people allowed to be on the tarmac other than Afghanistan? Ooh, got him. Another thing was pointed out that there was a worker on the from this airport who had alleged that they do not let people there for this type of stuff. Like, there was nobody there that day. They worked that day. They stated that there wasn't people there on the tarmac. This never happened. It was quiet. There was nobody there at all. She walked off the plane with no crowd at all. No crowd at all. Funny. It says, what reputable news source posted this picture as proof of Walls-Harris crowd size? Who is the cited photographer and what agency do they work for? Without that information, this is just a picture that anyone, even you, could have manipulated for your own purposes and holds no weight. Now, the next person says that, oh, well, The Guardian used this. Another person says, yeah, so there it is. Okay. Interesting, funny. Who would have thought they would go to the lengths of this to try to convince you that she was popular? Now, let's talk about this. ESPN fired Sam Ponder. Sam Ponder was one of the individuals, and by one of the individuals, I mean the only individual from ESPN who called out this transgender BS. And apparently, this woman was fired for it. It says Ponder didn't immediately, let's see. The ESPN fired Samantha Ponder and Robert Griffin III on Thursday. The Athletic first reported the shakeup, and ESPN confirmed the news on Fox News Digital. Ponder was anchor on Sunday NFL Countdown, and Griffin was an analyst who appeared on multiple shows. Ponder didn't immediately comment on the decision. Griffin joked on X about getting fired on his day off, using a clip from the movie Friday. The decision to fire Ponder sparked most of the outrage on social media. Riley Gaines, host of Outkick's Gaines for Girls podcast, and former ESPN anchor Sage Steele were among those to defend Ponder. And this is what Riley Gaines had to say. It says, so ESPN fires Sam Ponder, the only woman at the network who has publicly said that men don't belong in women's sports 3 weeks before football season. Sam is one of the most beautiful, yes, she's very beautiful, genuine women I've ever met, alongside Sage Steele, who had a similar fate. Not a coincidence. Sage Steele came out with this video clip.
So it's been a couple hours since I saw the news that ESPN decided to fire Samantha Ponder for cost-cutting reasons. You know what? I'm not going to even waste any time talking about ESPN. I need to make sure that you all know who Samantha Ponder is. You've watched her for years. And she's an incredible talent, but that's the least important thing about her. This woman is so strong. I met her when we co-hosted the Scripps National Spelling Bee in DC 100 years ago. And back then she was still Samantha Steele. So we were like, oh yeah, we're twinsies. Sage Steele, Samantha Steele. We look exactly the same too. And we've been connected at the hip ever since, mainly because of our similar values and our faith. Samantha has taught me so much about God, about Scripture, about the Bible, about not giving up, and about standing tall. And you know what? She's done that for the last several years at ESPN, even when it was hard. When I was still there, we talked about it all the time. And I just need everyone to know this is a brilliant woman, an incredible mother who has also made me a better mother, for sure, Sam, don't deny that. And I'm so excited for her future. It's so scary when you're in it and you don't think there's any way that you're going to ever be okay. Sam already knows that this is such a blessing that God is bestowing upon her, because there's so much more for her to do. And I'm just honored to call her a dear friend, and so damn proud of what she's done and how she's done it this entire time. So this is another loss for ESPN, but it is a gain for literally the rest of the world, because now you're going to see the true Sam Ponder. It's all going to come out, and I hope you're ready. She is a gem, and I'm honored to call her a friend. I love you, girl.
Now, why would you see this true person, right? What would it be about working at ESPN that would make you be able to see the true person behind the on-screen personality? And that would be because when you work at these types of organizations, and ESPN, I'm pretty sure, is owned by Disney. Who would have thought they would hire or fire somebody for having their own belief systems? But why would you see the real person? Well, because any person in a position that is owned by these gatekeepers, whether it be ESPN, whether it be high-level movies and actors and musicians, and it all comes down to, do you want to keep your job? Do you? Because if you want to keep your job, you have to keep your mouth shut, especially if you're religious. Especially if you're, somebody who has outspoken beliefs about the current indoctrination that's happening in our school systems. Any one of those things, pick your poison, right? And speaking about this, the Olympic Games just ended. The Olympic Games have come to a close, and I think we learned 3 valuable lessons from the Olympic Games. Number 1 being that the world will no longer tolerate women in men's sports. The world will no longer tolerate women in men's sports. Number 2, the world will no longer tolerate the mocking of Christianity and religion in general. Right? We saw that with the opening ceremony, right? All of the religious mocking of Christianity. It would never happen with any other religion. No possibility whatsoever. Absolutely not. Would have never happened. Imagine if they put Allah up on that stage and started mocking, or Muhammad, sorry. If they had a whole opening ceremony mocking Muhammad. Do you know what would have happened? And honestly, this speaks a little bit to the I don't know how to position it. The fragility of Christians today. Christians almost took over the world at one point, guys. Like, we have to remember our roots here. Christianity is not a faith of weak individuals who aren't outspoken about what they believe in, or why they believe in it, or are afraid of fighting back against people who mock their God, or their any one of the other religions that are out there. If Judaism was mocked publicly, if, name it, any other religion, right? It would be a crazy outpour. Even Buddhism, right? Even, any one of these other religions, if they were publicly mocked on a world stage, there would be huge outcry. But guess what? You know what you can be racist against? White people. You know who you can be sexist against? Men. You know what religion you can make fun of openly without fear for repercussions? Christianity. That's the reality of today. But now we know the Olympics apologized. They apologized because there was enough pushback. Religion will no longer be mocked. Specifically, Christianity is no longer on the table. Will not be mocked. Women are not going to be allowed in the world stage to be competing against men. Men should not be allowed on the world stage competing against women, especially in combat sports. And number 3, the United States is still the baddest motherfucking country in the world, bar none. We have the greatest athletes. We have the greatest economy. regardless of what's been done and undone, and the burdens that can be seen cannot be unburdened by what has been. We're the greatest country in the fucking world. We're the most athletic country. We have the biggest and most thriving economy. Our software development and technology in Silicon Valley is better than anywhere else in the world. Our entrepreneurship and businesses are greater than anywhere else, bar none. No competition. Right? I do think that we ended up tying with China in some way, somehow. But the last time I looked, we were up by like 30, 40 medals. That's what we learned from the Olympics. All right. So ESPN fired her. We've seen this go south. I don't know when these organizations are going to learn that just this woke shit will no longer be tolerated. It won't be. We're not going to allow it. Right? You're going to fire her. You know what? There's a bigger organization out there with a bigger role for her somewhere that she's going to get as a result of this. Her clout just went up 5 notches as a result of this, especially when you understand that a huge portion of the community, especially when you talk about the football season and football in general, and the type of people that follow those sports where the money comes from, generally white, generally male, generally Christian. Generally not wanting men to compete against women in combat sports. That's the reality of it, right? And so what makes sense about this? Well, it's like the Taylor Swiftification of ESPN and sports in general, right? You have to the Colin Kaepernicks of the world are pumped up, and the white male Christian quarterbacks, right, are thrown on, tossed out of the sport onto their ass and have to go do speaking gigs to make money, right? It's crazy, but guess what? The pendulum is swinging back. We know that. We've seen it over and over again, whether it's the Bud Light campaigns, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's, name it, it's happened. We have seen over and over and over again that this shit won't be tolerated anymore. And I am glad. I'm proud of you guys for speaking out against this. We have to continue it, right? We have to continue speaking out against the trans bullshit. We have to continue saying men shouldn't be allowed in women's sports. We have to continue speaking out and saying your Christianity is not going to be mocked. But we're winning the culture war right now, guys, and they know it. They know it. They may own all of the news media outlets, but guess what? We own all of the free speech. We own almost all of the major podcasts are people speaking about these things in a dissident way compared to what the large organizations out there are doing. Because that's the truth. That represents what the people think. That's if you have a long form content, stream of thought, stream of consciousness conversation with most people, they're going to say that this shit is crazy. Doesn't make any sense. Women should not have to fist fight men in the Olympics. Christianity should not be mocked on a world stage in front of everybody. Very, very simple things to adhere to, yet they keep wanting to push it despite how much money they continue to lose. All right, let's transition. Let's look at this here. But before we do that, one thing that I found out when I was doing some of my research into EMFs, I think this just a few days ago, I'm reading a book by Dr. Robert Malone. I think that's who it is. I wrote a book called EMF'd. Maybe it's not Robert Malone. That's the let's see. I believe that Robert Malone is the Dr. Mercola. That's his name. Let's see. Yeah, Dr. Mercola. The book is called EMF'd by Dr. Joseph McCullough. Robert Malone's the guy who talked about mRNA, gene therapies during COVID. Also a great individual to read and follow. But Dr. Joseph Mercola, you can get this book on Amazon right now, 4.7 stars, 823 ratings, packed full of information that you should know about modern technology, whether it's 5G, Wi-Fi, cell phones, and something that really stuck out to me, and I just started reading this. I've been reading about 5G and Wi-Fi radiation poisoning and EMFs for a little bit of time now. But something that I didn't know was that if you go into your iPhone settings right now, you have an iPhone, if you're not driving, pull your iPhone out, go to your settings, hit general. scroll all the way down to legal and regulatory, and you're going to see that there's 4 buttons that you can press. One is like legal is compliance, one's regulatory, one's something else, and then one of them is RF exposure. And so Apple legally has to tell you the amount of radio frequencies that are being emitted from your phone because there is proven harmful health side effects as a result of this technology. They even have to go as far as to test your phone to make sure that it's not emitting enough RF frequencies that exceeds the allowable amount of SARS. And SARS stands for your specific absorption rate of the RF frequencies. So essentially what they do is they like almost like Mythbusters style it, and they create this like mannequin head with fluid inside of it. And then they put a cell phone up to its head, and they measure the amount of thermal energy that is passed through by seeing the differentiation in temperature inside of the brain as a result of the RF frequencies. Now, once you read into this book and you find out a little bit about it, you realize that the SAR is a terrible way to actually measure this, because the concern is not the thermal transition or the thermal aspects of the technology. It's actually the DNA damage that's occurring as a result of creating free radicals. But it can be a good indication of that type of damage. So what Apple lists and what every single other phone company lists within the instruction manuals of your phone is that you should keep your cell phone at least 5 to 15 millimeters away from your body at all times. You should not hold your phone up to your ear. You should not drive with it between your legs. You should not have it in your hand for long periods of times. You should have it away from your body as much as possible. And they have to list this in your phone settings. Not sure why I said that like that, but they do. They have to list it. Legal, regulatory. The only thing that they have to list in there as far as legal and regulatory bodies go, besides their terms and conditions, essentially, is the fact that this thing emits terrible, terrible radiation. And as a result, it can harm your body. Just something interesting I wanted to share with you. Now, the material that's inside of this hat, the material that's inside of this phone pouch that I put my phone in when I'm not using it, stops those frequencies from being emitted, stops that specific absorption rate from going up, stops the DNA and cellular damage that's occurring, stops the creation of free radicals, which causes cancer and heart issues and all of these other hosts of insomnia and all of these terrible things. But it's right there in your phone. Proof. 100%. Open your phone, look at your settings. You'll see it right now. When you're done driving, check it out. Whatever you're doing, look at it in your phone settings and just believe me, guys. This is going to be the same conversation that we had about cigarettes 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, where doctors were literally doing commercials saying, I prefer the American spirits. I prefer an iPhone. Right? This is safe and effective. This is good for your health, right? We're going to have the same conversation about your Wi-Fi router, about the microwave in your house, about your cell phone, about the 5G towers that they're putting up literally everywhere. Years from now, mark my words, that is going to be a consistent conversation, just the same way that we did it about cigarettes. Oh, it's safe. Oh, it's fine. Just the same way we talked about the vaccine. Oh, it's safe and effective. There's going to be no side effects. Well, guess what? Go look at VAERS. Right? Go look at VAERS. You're going to find out that they were lying to you for profitability. And what you don't realize is that the telecommunications companies that rely on EMFs being emitted from you or being emitted around you all the time make ungodly amounts of money, even more than the cigarette companies. Crazy. So mark my words, guys. And that's why I started Ronin. So check out roninbasics.com. Get yourself a Faraday hat. Get yourself a Faraday beanie. We're going to be getting those phone sleeves out for you very shortly. Get backpacks. We're going to eventually potentially move into apparel, shirts, all of that stuff. Go check it out. Become a part of the movement. Share it. Tell your friends. Send one to your mama. I don't know what you do. roninbasics.com. Go check it out. And as soon as you get on there, there'll be a 10% coupon just for going to the website that you can just add your email into there. Just gives you all of the information, new drops and stuff like that. And then if you give your cell phone on the next step, you get 15% off. So 15% off. Go to the website right now. Check it out. roninbasics.com. All right, so let's move forward. The next and final thing that we're going to discuss here, well, maybe not the next and final, because we're going to talk about this first, which is the fact that there was a plane in Sao Paulo, Brazil, that went down very mysteriously, very weird way for a plane to go down. And there's some people that speculate that maybe it's because of the people that were on the plane. Do you remember the Titanic? There's this whole theory around the Titanic. The theory goes, if you don't know it, that there was all of these very, very powerful, rich people who were against the Fed, the Federal Reserve, being created. Right around the same time that it was going to be implemented, these people were going to speak out about it. They were going to pour money into stopping it. They were going to do all of these things. Well, those same people went on this huge-ass cruise ship together, and that same cruise ship happened to hit a huge iceberg, and everybody died. That's weird. Well, similarly, with this plane crash in Brazil, there was multiple, I believe it was 8 physicians, 8 doctors that were on this plane at one given time going to a conference to discuss and release evidence linking mRNA vaccines to very, very serious health effects. Now, when you say mRNA vaccines, it's almost a misnomer because the mRNA technology was always a gene therapy. They literally updated the definition of vaccine to allow it to be considered a vaccine. The same way they did it with herd immunity, the same way that they did it with all of these other things, right? Orwellian. Very Orwellian. So there's a video that you can watch on Rumble. It goes through about 15 minutes of it. Let's go ahead and watch this watch this video from this article, and then we will talk a little bit more about it. Here you go.
That deadly plane crash in Brazil, killing everyone on board. The 2 black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder, they were recovered. This chilling video, it shows that passenger plane in a free fall from the sky. All 57 passengers and 4 crew members died. There's still no explanation as to why or how this happened. The head of Brazil's aviation accident agency says the aircraft didn't communicate any type of emergency before this crash. ABC's Allison Kosick reports.
This is the horrific moment a plane carrying 61 passengers and crew plummeted to the ground in Brazil, killing everyone on board.
Meu Deus, meu Deus, meu Deus, meu Deus.
The 2-engine turboprop from local airline Voapass spinning out of control and crashing into a residential neighborhood. Witnesses horrified. This man emotional, saying he was running late and missed the flight. Now grateful to the airport worker who wouldn't let him board. The flight taking off from Cascavel in the Brazilian state of Paraná, bound for the airport in Sao Paulo. Shortly before it was scheduled to come in for a landing, the plane dropping 17,000 feet in just 1 minute.
Usually this sort of thing occurs because the flight crew was not able to maintain or did not maintain enough airspeed. Clearly it was a stall spin. How they got into it is what we don't know.
The fiery wreckage, large parts of the plane smoldering in a residential neighborhood, debris littering yards. 1 person on the ground was injured. Brazilian aviation officials say the aircraft did not communicate any emergency on board. The focus is on examining those black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, which will be crucial in the investigation. Allison Kosick, ABC News, New York.
Brazil's president declared 3 days of mourning for the victims.
So there it is. Now, the idea here, I believe that there was 8. Let's go ahead and pull it up and see if there's any other further information about this from what we were reading. But that's a terrifying video. And if you know anything about aviation, that shit doesn't happen, right? Like, you don't just magically lose speed and plummet. And if you do run one of your turbines or whatever, your engine's fails, you're going to tell air traffic control. I would know. I was an air traffic controller. You're going to tell air traffic control. They're going to tell you that this is happening, and here's what we have going on, and here's our plan, and here's what we recommend you do, and you should stop at this, this unmanned airport close to you, and you would help usher them to where they need to go. Now, from the comments here, it says, and they all decided to fly together and told others that's what they were on their way to do. You're saying this is the exact same conspiracy as the Titanic that was carrying men on their way to stop the creation of the Federal Reserve? Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying. That's exactly what I just talked about. It also says that Malaysia Air Flight 370 had a team of semiconductor experts on their way to reveal allegedly room temperature semiconductors. That's interesting. Very interesting. Let's go ahead and watch this. This is we'll see if there's any additional evidence here on the video that's linked. It leads you to a Rumble video talking about it. So let's see if we can, maybe we'll listen into a couple minutes about the conspiracy aspect of this here. Here you go.
And blowing the whistle on the devastating turbo cancer epidemic sweeping the world have been found dead. The bodies of 6 world-leading oncologists and 2 resident medics were found on Friday in the wreckage of a plane that plunged from the sky in Brazil and exploded in a fireball, killing all 62 people on board. The doctors were on their way to an international conference in Sao Paulo, where they were set to present their findings that mRNA and the COVID-19 vaccines are responsible for the explosion of turbo cancers and autoimmune diseases wreaking havoc around the world.
I would just like to state that I had no idea the word turbo cancer was actually accepted. I still don't know if it is, but that's a terrifying term. Turbo cancer. It's like Turbo Man. Turbo cancer. I'm gonna have to look that one up.
In the world today, mainstream media are working overtime to brush this story under the carpet on behalf of Big Pharma, but the facts are damning, and we're not going to let them cover up the truth. Before we dive in, join the People's Voice Locals community if you know bursting into flames. SC-2500 Vopos airline flight plunged from the sky and crashed into a gated community. The plane was at an altitude of 16,000 feet when it went into a death spiral and plummeted to the ground in 50 seconds. Eyewitnesses who caught the crash on video said it appeared to stall before circling to the ground and bursting into flames at around 1:30 p.m. local time. A total of 15 doctors were scheduled to take the doomed flight, but miraculously 7 had taken an earlier plane.
New information tonight on this haunting scene. A plane spinning slowly as it drops from the sky, crashing in a Brazilian neighborhood near Sao Paulo.
The bodies will take a lot of time.
We're concentrating on providing specialized assistance from psychologists, social workers,
and are being transferred to the morgue in Sao Paulo, where they will be x-rayed and DNA tests will be done to identify them.
The 8 doctors who tragically lost their lives in the air crash include radiologist Lianel Ferreira and pediatric cancer experts Sarah Stella and Silvia Osaki. Eduardo Baptistella of the Regional Medical Council said, "Unfortunately, we received very sad news and were able to confirm the death of 8 doctors. The doctors were going to an oncology conference. These were people who dedicated their lives to saving others. Saving others for these oncologists involved warning the world about the devastating effects of mRNA vaccines and the skyrocketing rates of cancer around the world, including rare, ultra-aggressive cancers behaving in ways we've never seen before." According to a colleague, the whistleblowing doctors were set to present evidence to the world that the public were misled about the nature of the mRNA COVID-19 injections. The doctors on the doomed flight had concluded that governments and regulators must urgently recall the mRNA vaccines before even more harm is done.
We have all been warned to stop researching this area. My colleagues were told they must not, under any circumstances, bring this information to the public forum. But they chose to do it anyway. They understood the risks, but they did not expect the plane to fall from the sky. We now know that mRNA produces an uncontrolled amount of spike protein in the body because the N1-methylpseudoridine allows the mRNA to remain in the body for an unspecified amount of time. Moderna and Pfizer told us that mRNA would leave the body in a matter of weeks or months, but it doesn't. This is incredibly dangerous. This is a disaster for global health. We are seeing the results of this deception in real time around the world.
According to Dr. Makis, some of his young and healthy patients have died days or even hours after diagnosis.
There are only a handful out of the 100,000 doctors, Canadian doctors, that didn't take the vaccine that are still practicing medicine. So it's something like 99.9% vaccination rate. And they were the first ones to line up for their vaccines. Well, as I started looking at the sudden deaths of Canadian doctors, I realized, yes, most of them are dying from cardiac issues, heart injuries, cardiac arrests, dying while jogging or swimming, dying in their sleep. And Dr. Peter McCullough has talked about this extensively about the myocarditis and the damage to the heart, the scarring to the heart. And then some were dying from blood clots, pulmonary emboli, strokes. But then there was quite a large subset of doctors who were developing extremely aggressive cancers. And cancers at an age that they shouldn't be getting. So, for example, there was a doctor who developed gastric cancer in his 30s. Presented at stage 4, he was dead in less than a year. Very rare brain cancers in young individuals in their 20s and 30s, medical students, medical residents. And these cancers would always present at stage 4, and they would always kill them in a matter of a few months, and it was always less than a year. And, at first I didn't know, what the term for the
leadership, YouTube banned any content that questioned vaccine safety, while popular YouTubers...
Oh, that's interesting. The YouTube CEO that was hyper banning material about the shot also so happened to die of turbo cancer following her having all of the vaccines. That's interesting.
For banning what she called vaccine conspiracy theories on the platform, died after a 2-year battle with an ultra-aggressive form of cancer. Under Wojcicki's leadership, YouTube banned any content that questioned vaccine safety, while popular YouTubers with millions of followers were paid to promote the COVID mRNA injections to their followers. Pharma companies were desperate to use stealth marketing to brainwash the masses. Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, received $20 million from Pfizer to push their deadly product. To put that figure in perspective, it's far more money than he earns playing football.
All right, so you get the point. That was the idea. These doctors were going to publish information, going to have a speech about this somewhere. 15 of them were going to. So I guess, what we should really do is dive into what did the other ones talk about when they arrived. If not all of these physicians were there should be some physicians that were at this conference that had the conversations that they were trying to stop them from having. That would be a good follow-up item for anybody out there and myself. Very interesting. So last but not least, we're just going to dive into this one, getting towards the tail end of this here, which is that there's a new global health emergency, says the WHO. What is MPOX? Where are the outbreaks? And will the virus spread, says AP News. Now, you always have to be concerned about a virus when they rebrand it. Just like they rebranded, they rebranded a transsexual into a transgender. Right? As soon as they rebranded that, you knew some shit was about to go down. As soon as they rebranded mRNA technology into vaccines, as soon as they rebranded, COVID-19 from, every time they rebrand these things, something's about to go down, right? It's no longer monkeypox, it's mpox, because monkey implies that it's not going to kill you, it's going to kill monkeys. Right? Monkeys implies that it aggressively transfers between monkeys and not humans, which is the case. If you go on Google right now and you type it, you need to bookmark it because it says it doesn't transfer easily between humans. It's pretty hard to have it transfer. And when it does, it's not that serious. Well, we can't have that, right? So here it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at this article. Right, SARS-CoV-2, right? No, here we go. Mpox, the new global pandemic. The World Health Organization declared Wednesday that the increasing spread of Mpox, monkeypox, in Africa is a global health emergency, warning the virus might ultimately spill across international borders. The announcement by the WHO General Director Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus came after a meeting with the UN health officials. Here's the article for you. The African Centers for Disease Control and Prevention declared that Mpox a public health emergency on the continent on Tuesday. WHO said there have been more than 14,000 cases and 524 deaths in Africa this year, which already exceeded last year's figures. So far, more than 96% of all cases and deaths are in a single country, the Congo. Scientists are concerned by the spread of the new version of the disease that there might be more easily transmitted among people. They're concerned about it, but they don't know. But they're going to tell you that they know so they can make money off of it. Right? It goes on to say, what is Mpox? Mpox, also known as monkeypox, was first identified by scientists in 1958 when there was outbreaks of a pox-like disease in monkeys. Until recently, most human cases were seen in people in Central and West Africa who had close contact with infected monkeys. In 2022, the virus was confirmed to spread via sex for the first time and triggered outbreaks with more than 70 countries across the world. Mpox belongs to the same family of viruses as smallpox, but causes milder symptoms like fever, chills, and body aches. People with more serious cases can develop lesions on the face, hands, chest, and genitals. So that's essentially what you need to know is keep an eye on monkeypox because it might be coming to a locked down city near you. And it is an election season. Just saying. Just saying. It is an election season. And they will do literally anything to shut you down and get mail-in ballots to become a thing as it was last time. Now, do some research on that. But in the meantime, that is what I have for you, my friends. Go ahead and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. I appreciate you. I love you. I'm happy to be back. We're going to be here every single week now. Consistency is key. I'm going to be right here with you guys. So make sure you subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. Tell your mom. Tell your friends. Tell your cousin, your aunt, your coworker, whatever. The only way that this podcast grows is if you guys share it with other people. And I appreciate you. I love you. I hope you're having a great week. And I will see you soon right here on the Adams Archive. Thank you.
Adams Archive.